think we have it now. As you can see, I have some notes here. The fellow over there in that blue coat, his name is Elbert Guillory, the second. The gentleman beside him is my son-in-law. His name is Jason Paul Frugier Jr. He's named after my grandson, who is Jason Paul Frugier III. Or maybe I have it backwards. Those gentlemen insist that I try to stay close to the script. There are three kinds of people that you never, ever want to turn loose in front of a microphone. Lawyers, preachers, and politicians. And since I'm all three, they try to keep me a little constrained. Before I begin with this, we had a conversation a little earlier about where I'm from. And normally, because we're having some technical difficulties, I can't show you the big presentation of the map of Louisiana. But if you permit me, I have a solution. I brought a map of Louisiana. As you can see, this is Texas over here, Mississippi here, New Orleans, Shreveport right here, Monroe here, Lake Charles, and right here is where I'm from. It's a little place called Opelousas, and right next to it, 7 miles from Opelousas, is Lawtell. Mom's from Opelousas, Dad's from Lawtell, so that's my neck of the woods. Excuse me this is a Republican map. It has 2 jobs. It's also a great place to carry my glasses and telephones and other things like that, since they won't let me carry a purse. Recently, I heard a presentation by Dr. Mike Strain, the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture for Louisiana. And he started his presentation with a quote. I'd like to share that quote with you, if I may. I think it kind of puts where we are in perspective. The budget should be balanced. The treasury should be refilled. Public debt should be reduced. The arrogance of officialdom should be tempered and controlled. And the assistance to foreign lands should be curtailed. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance, lest Rome become bankrupt. Cicero, 55 BC, 2,000 years ago, Rome faced many of the problems that America faces today. Rome did not survive those problems. As you can hear, many of the same problems that Rome faced at that time, we face now. This crazy public spending, government spending. They were being overrun by many people from other lands because Rome was Rome. I mean, it was the place on earth to be. So everyone came and overran their systems. Public assistance, for example. They had a public assistance system that was being overrun by folks from outside their country. Their values were being changed. The character of Rome was being changed. They did not survive. My fellow Louisianans, we have reached the fork in the road. There are two roads that lie before us, lie ahead of us. The left road leads down into the valley of chaos and the destruction of America as we know it. The road to the right leads up to that shining city on a hill. That road leads to freedom and liberty and opportunity for everyone. For everyone. But right now there are some barriers, some hurdles in that road up the hill. And those are the ones that I'd like to talk with you about tonight. Those are the hurdles that we must get over or under or around before we can climb this hill, before we can take America back up that hill. The first barrier is federal spending. $30 trillion. Think about that figure. $30 trillion. When we wrote it out, my secretary came and said, "Don't you have too many zeros?" I said, "No, that's what 30 trillion looks like when you write it out." That's how much money our nation owes. That is more money than any nation in the history of planet Earth has owed. Those people in Washington, D.C. really don't have a plan to get us out of this financial hole. If we stopped spending right now and started paying off this debt, our great-great-great-grandchildren would still be working to pay off $30 trillion of debt. How did we get into this deep financial hole? How? Politicians. Politicians that we elected. DC Dumbos have spent money that they don't have. They have spent money like drunken sailors. And I can use that slur because I'm a Navy veteran, as is my son-in-law. But let me tell you that of all the drunken sailors that I have seen and have been, I have never seen sailors spend money like DC politicians. The spender-in-chief in today's White House is on a course to set spending records that surpass all previous records. He's spending it faster and more than anyone at any time in previous American history. He gives away money like there's no tomorrow. And for our children and grandchildren, there will be no tomorrow unless we stop it. People sometimes forget what happens when governments go bankrupt. Please, look at what happened in ancient Rome. Look at what happened in the once great Soviet Union. They spent themselves, 15 nations, one of the two most powerful nations on earth. They spent themselves into bankruptcy. And now the once great Russian bear is a little bear, a midget bear. Still a bear, still has a lot of nuclear weapons, but they are nowhere near the great nation that they were. Look at modern Greece. Greece today. Look at Detroit. And look at who is hurt when governments go bankrupt. Look at the elderly, the children, people on pensions, veterans, people who are on welfare, on public housing, food stamps. When governments go bankrupt, many, many, many people are hurt. If we don't stop what's happening in Washington, D.C., we will never get up that hill. And the children, your children and mine, my grandsons and your granddaughters will never know the America that I grew up in, which is a wonderful place. Nothing is perfect, but it's just the best on planet Earth. And if we keep working, we can make it perfect. But crazy spending is only one of those barriers in our path, one of those hurdles in our road up the hill. Another barrier blocking our path is violence. Today, urban violence threatens to destroy American safety, security, and economics. Not to mention that violence threatens to destroy us. The number one cause of death of black men, it's not cancer, heart disease. It is other black men shooting each other down like dogs in the street. But wait, they don't just shoot up each other. They shoot up innocent children. They shoot up old people. Innocent old people. How did we get here with this violence? I'll tell you. Too many baby daddies. Not enough fathers. Too many sperm donors who can't be found after the fun is over. Too many mothers who won't discipline their children, but let them play video games and basketball all day and half of the night. Too many teachers afraid to discipline children, afraid of the violent parents that will attack them, afraid of the expensive lawsuits that they would face, because you know what will happen if you discipline a child. My goodness, courthouse is the next stop. Worst of all, we've developed a court system that imposes no serious consequences. Oh, he's too young. Oh, he has disabilities. Oh, he was abused when he was young, so he's a killer now. We must stop liberal judges and liberal prosecutors from slapping on the wrist career criminals, violent criminals, while the rest of America has to cringe and duck bullets. We must stop the justice system and bring justice back to it. In just 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, in my neighborhood in Opelousas, we've had 2 shootings. One man killed, another man paralyzed. The man paralyzed was lying in his bed, not far from his 2 children, one a year old and one 3.5 years old. My family's lived in that neighborhood 150 years. 150 years we've lived there. And we have never had this kind of lawlessness and violence. America, we've got to stop it. We have to bring back consequences. We have to bring back real prison. I'm not talking about a place where they have color television and some computers and they work out all day and watch TV. I'm talking about prison. We have to bring back the police. Let's make America safe again. But not only is our safety at risk, our values are at risk. Basic American values that separate us from the squabbling, lawless countries around the world. You know, those values make us a civilization. A lot of people overlook the crucial point of being a civilized nation, a civilization. America ranks with the great civilizations of history. Egypt, Rome, Greece, Timbuktu. But there have been many powerful countries, but very few are called civilizations as we are. Well, my brothers and sisters, our values and our future are in great danger today. Right now, there are people in America actively working to change the course of our future. They want a nation where manufacturing and manufacturing jobs are sent overseas by free trade agreements, while at the same time there are so many here who are lined up to receive free housing, free food, free college, free phones. Those same people want to impose on our nation their radical Green New Deal, where producing oil and refining oil is done in foreign countries. They're too busy to look at history. Many of you are too young to remember in 1972 what happened before America became the number one, as we are today, the number one producer of energy in the world, when we were dependent on Arab oil. And the Arabs we did something they didn't like, so they decided to turn the spigot. And we had major disruptions in our economy, major disruptions in our travel patterns. Many people couldn't get to work. There were very long lines. I'm talking about blocks and blocks of lines with people trying to get gasoline. Couldn't get gasoline. They have forgotten this. And they want us to be once again dependent on foreign oil. That is dumb. But not only would they have us dependent on foreign oil, they would destroy 30 million jobs in the petroleum industry. Direct and indirect jobs. 30 million jobs. 30 million American families would lose their income, lose their mortgage payments, their automobile payments, their children's college payments. $30 million more people would be in line to receive a government check. It's a lose-lose proposition. It is. Those economic policies of the people in Washington, D.C., and their obsession with oil and gas and the destruction of oil and gas would vastly change America's future for the worse. And those same Democrats who want to do that, Pelosi and AOC and that gang, they want to flip our American values right out the window. Remember ancient Rome and ancient Greece and Sodom and Gomorrah? They were all big and powerful at one time. Just before each of those societies fell and were wiped off the face of the earth, each fell into sexual degradation, fell into the destruction of families headed by a man and a woman. Now, I'm not trying to limit anybody's rights, but I do not want anyone ramming their agenda down the throats of America. And I'm also pointing out, just plain history, just pointing out what happened to Greece, Rome, and Sodom and Gomorrah. And they all fell amidst sexual debauchery taking over their countries. The next big barrier in our road those same people want to destroy our freedoms, the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. And I'll use one as an example. Just look at what they have done to America's religious freedoms. Today, our children can't pray in public schools anymore. We used to. Mischievous little boys like Elbert Guillory, the father, mischievous little boys prayed 3 times a day. And some of that mischief was curtailed because those mischievous little boys knew that God was watching. Not anymore. And the school system is filled with disrespect and violence. Our elected officials can't start a public meeting with a prayer anymore. We cannot display our baby Jesus in Christmas downtown nativity scenes anymore. Wait. A high school coach, and I can cite if you want to, after I've finished, if you want me to give you the place where this happened, I can get it for you on the telephone. A high school football coach cannot any longer kneel after the football game on the 50-yard line and pray privately. Not inviting anybody, not telling his players, come with me. This man walking at the end of the game to the 50-yard line and kneeling and praying. Can't do that anymore. If you're a baker who doesn't want to bake a cake for a same-sex marriage, you get hauled into court. If you're a preacher who won't marry those folks in a same-sex wedding or permit your church to be used, there's going to be, well, you know I'm a Baptist preacher. Y'all going to have to visit me in jail. Please bring the home-baked cookies when you come. We let them come into our nation. We're the majority, a Christian nation. We let them come into our nation, into God's house, and stop us from worshiping our God as we wish. We stood by and let that happen, sucking our thumbs like little babies. So don't think that when I yell, help, emergency, don't think that I'm some kind of far right-wing conspiracy peddling kook. I have watched this happen to my nation. I've seen it happen. And if you think they'll stop, they won't. They plan to keep pushing us until there is not one scintilla of freedom left in this country. Our future, our values, our freedoms are under attack. The question is, what will we do and how will we do it? Well, we've got to let people get to know us. The media and the cuckoo birds tell people that we are a bunch of racist white supremacists. Excuse me. Fellow white supremacists, excuse my tan. But we must let people get to know us. There are thousands of ways, and we have to find them to let people know who we are and what we are, and that we don't wear sheets and we don't have tails. We have to get the truth out. A lot of people don't know that we are against abortion on demand. That abortion on demand which kills 500,000 black babies every year. If I was a BLM dealer, I'd be out in the streets marching. It's racist to kill 500,000 babies every year. The Klan at its height never killed people anywhere near these numbers. Planned Parenthood, they should wear sheets and hoods instead of those white doctor's coats. We have to get the truth out into the places where there are not a lot of conservatives. We have to communicate with people where they are, geographically and intellectually. In black and brown churches, there should be more of us. In their public gatherings, their events, their radio stations, we need to be on their radio stations, talking about who we are and what we believe. We have to let people know that we are mainstream Americans who love our God, love all the people in our country, and love our country. And that we want the exact same things that every American wants. All we want is a safe world for our children, a good education for our children, opportunity for our children to be whatever they choose to be. However hard they want to work, this is the place to do it. They can climb as far up that American ladder of success as they choose. We want freedom and liberty. And I believe that in every soul, in every heart, people want freedom and liberty. I believe that. And that's all we want. It's up to you and you and you and you and you and me. It's up to us now. We can either sit back and let the enemies of America steal and destroy our great nation. We can let those DC dodos spend us into bankruptcy. We can let the thugs shoot us and our children. We can let Pelosi and AOC steal our oil and our jobs and our economy. We can stand up and fight. We can fight and defeat America's enemies. We can drain the swamp and drive out those mealy-mouthed mongrels who want to destroy our country. And you, through all of this, America's future depends on you. The burden is on you now. I'm probably the oldest person in this room. Looking around, I believe I'm the oldest person in this room. Almost 80 years old. It's time for me to to go and take my grandsons and my granddaughter fishing and that sort of thing. But instead of being able to do that, I have to be here. I have to fight. Because if I take time off to go fishing with them, I may catch a couple of fish today, but they will not have freedom and opportunity tomorrow. We must have the courage and fortitude to defeat our enemies and to protect our great nation.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.